of difficulties that we dealt with. The evidence in this inquiry is that the men, or at least two of them, were injured. And that, you see that as an added difficulty in rescuing the men in that pipe. They haven't been injured.
Yes.
Most likely from the delta P factor.
Yes.
Right. And you also told me that a planned rescue would envisage that the rescue diver, I call him the first man in the line, going into the line, would be going in feet first.
Yes.
Help us with how you envisage he going in feet first. If he encountered the blockages and he removed those things, and he encountered the first diver, how is it envisaged that there will be the rescue after that?
How does he pull him out?
How is the contact, the rescuing, what is to happen when he reaches him?
No, there will be tremendous difficulty because of the confined space.
Yeah.
Tremendous difficulty because of the confined space.
Yes.
To work within.
Yes, but then how are we communicating to that person? You sort of factor that in?
No, there will be no form of communication.
So, because
well, unless they were in an air pocket.
Fine.
well, yeah. But assuming no air pocket, or even assuming an air pocket, how is he communicating with him?
All the way out.
Yeah.
No, well, assuming no air pocket, how would he be alive?
Right. Well, assuming he has a tank.
Yeah.
We're making some assumptions here. You realize the amount of assumptions
So it's
we're making.
assumptions, yes,
Yeah?
it's assumptions. So, it's
So let us
difficult,
assume if he's in an air pocket, he breathing, he alive, he getting the air from the air
Yeah.
pocket. Assuming no air pocket, assuming he had a tank with him, so he's alive.
Yeah.
How is it envisaged with him with the tank that you're communicating to him what you, the person with your feet towards him, how you anticipate that that will happen after that? Impossible, isn't it?
More or less, yeah.
And also, the difficulty will vary depending on whether you're meeting him with his head first or his feet first.
Yes.
Another difficulty, isn't it?
Yes.
Almost getting to the point of impossibility.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. Now I want to take you to the evening of the 25th, or the afternoon. You were contacted by Mr. Fortune,
Yes.
and he contacted you at around 3 minutes to 5. 16:57 you have in a statement.
Yes.
And if you, in fairness to you, you have a statement there with you, right? Paragraph 5.
Yes. Yes.
And he made a request of you to mobilize Mitchell Professional Diving
Yes.
because there had been an incident at Paria.
Yes.
So you know it was a diving incident at least, because it did not activate mechanics or any other expertise. It
It had to do with the water.
had to do with water.
Yes.
But you recognize it was an emergency.
Yes.
But he gave you no further details on that?
No, none was available at the time.
No.
He did not know.
He only told you, emergency at Paria, activate Mitchell Diving,
Yes.
and get there to assist.
If required, yes.
He said if required?
Might not be his exact words.
Well, give us what he might have said that caused you to come to that conclusion.
Well, it's okay. Yes.
Didn't he? Well, it must have been get Mitchell divers and get to Paria to assist in the incident.
Yes.
Because if you weren't to assist, you could have just called Mitchell and tell them, hey boys, all get down to Paria and see what they could do down there. But your supervisor asked you to go to assist and lend support.
My role?
Yeah.
To liaise. So I would have been the point of communication rather than everybody. Mitchell goes, everybody that's talking, they don't know who they're dealing with.
Right.
I would have been the focal point for communication to Mitchell.
Right. Because Mitchell is contracted by Heritage
Yes,
on a spot hire contract basis.
yes,
So you could give them instructions.
yes.
Having gotten that request at 16:57, what time you got to Paria?
I would have arrived at Paria approximately 8:20, I believe.
That's 3.5 hours after being told of an emergency.
Yes,
That's a long time, wouldn't you agree?
yes.
You weren't in emergency mode, it would appear.
Yes, I was.
And what took you 3.5 hours, thereabouts?
Because there were mobilization and logistics. So my role was to...
Speaking to
I'm
the
going to
mic.
ask you
Sorry.
to move
Closer
the
to the
microphone a little further to your
Yes.
left. Move it to your left so that when you turn left, you're speaking into it.
Yes.
Yes, so I would have had to facilitate any mobilization of Mitchells. Right, so if you would notice the time I would have arrived, so my urgency would be reflected in my time of arrival at Heritage Base, and that I would have been activated and responding to the incident in my capacity.
Yes.
So in terms of the mobilization of equipment for Mitchells, there would have been logistical support required because it's diving equipment.
Yes.
If they would have gone to the base, now this would have been an off day also.
This would have been a?
Off, you were off.
Yes.
Right? So I wasn't at work, I was home.
Right.
So I would have responded and went to Heritage Base in Point Fortin to facilitate any requests for them to get their equipment.
And then,
The equipment is bulky, so it may have involved mobilizing forklift operators and so forth, transportation, depending on what type of equipment you were going to carry up to Paria.
yes.
So there were a lot of activities prior to arriving at Paria.
Right, I understand that. I'm interested in that, what determined what equipment to be moved from Heritage to Paria?
Right, so with the lack of information, we would have carried the basic equipment to effect a dive.
Right.
Right.
And the basic equipment took forklift and all of that to move?
Yes, and a decision was also taken when we found out that there would have been further support in the form of Gulfstream Eagle, which would have had additional diving equipment. Certain things were left in an effort.
Certain things were?
Were left
Yeah.
in an effort to reach on site
Right.
in a timely manner.
So when did you know that you were getting further support from Gulfstream?
While I was at Heritage Base.
And at that point, you still did not know that what was the nature of the event?
No.
All right.
At that point, all you would have heard now might have been the mention of a habitat. And that's it. Not where the habitat was, what the activity was.
Right. But the fact that you were aware, whilst you were at Heritage site, that a habitat was involved, Delta P start occurring to your mind?
No.
Okay. Right. So you got to Paria at around 8:20.
Yes.
It's a known fact that that was Carnival Friday. The fact of Carnival Friday pose any difficulties, further difficulties to you in mobilizing men and equipment?
The only thing might have been traffic
Okay.
because we were mobilizing from Point Fortin.
Nobody on their way to Soca Monarch or anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Cool.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you all know the distances involved and I don't. So
Yes.
could you just give me some idea
Yeah.
how far away you lived from Heritage's site and then how far it was to get from Heritage's site to get to Paria's site? What are the distances we're talking about?
Right. So from where I left the Heritage site in Point Fortin, within 10 minutes.
You lived within 10 minutes of Heritage, so
In
that's a
Point Fortin.
short journey,
Yes. And you have over an hour from Point Fortin to San Fernando.
right? You have it's over an hour.
Yeah, and
I-
then you-
Is Heritage's site in Port of Spain?
No, it's in San Fernando. No, Point Fortin. Point Fortin.
It's where?
Point Fortin.
I don't know where that is, so,
So it's further south.
further south
Yes.
than Port of Spain?
No, than Paria.
Right. Oh, it's in the other direction.
Yeah.
I am with you. Okay, fine. So it's about an hour from there to get to Paria.
No, more than that.
More than an hour.
Yes.
And that's in ordinary traffic or in heavy traffic?
In ordinary traffic.
Ordinary traffic. Was the traffic heavier on that day?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Sorry to interrupt. I just needed to have a picture of the distance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you got to Paria. All you had at that point, as far as knowledge is concerned, that it was an incident, emergency involving diving.
Yes.
Right. You arrived there with Mitchell or ahead of them?
Ahead of them.
Right. When you got to Paria, what did you do?
I called OTSL to find out where they were,
Yes.
right? And I also called Mr. Holder to find out where he was.
As Mr. Osei Fleming Holder.
Yes.
Right. And he told you where he was? Where was he?
He tried to describe the room, but I wasn't aware of it. So it was downstairs the building.
He was downstairs of a building.
Yeah.
And you later get to know that that's the shipping building?
I'm still uncertain because it wasn't the main building. So I'm not aware of the name of the buildings.
Right, and where? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. And you went to that building?
Well, I didn't know where it was, so
No,
I asked around in the car park, and somebody eventually
Took you there?
took me to him. Yes.
Right. You met Mr. Paria-LMCS also? You know him?
He was there when I entered the office.
Right. And you met Mr. Piper at that same building?
No,
Where you met him?
upstairs.
Well, same
This
building.
is, I've no say, I don't think it's the same building. 'Cause I think this was a building to the side of the main building.
Okay, right. And you were taken upstairs to Mr. Piper,
I was taken upstairs. Yes.
and you met Mr. Piper there, who you told us before you did not know about.
At one time, yes. At one time I met him, yes.
When you say at
But
one time, what do you mean?
I wasn't taken to meet him, or I went into an office. He came into the office later on.
But you start to speak to him at around what? Shortly after, around 9 o'clock?
So yes, no, between 9:30 and 10.
Well, we are instructed that, all right, well, I wouldn't hold you too closely to that, but you met Mr. Piper along with Mr. Mustaq Mohammed, Mr. Paria-LMCS. Remember that
No,
meeting?
no,
Who you met? Mr. Piper only?
no. It was Mr. Piper, the first encounter with personnel from Paria, other than Mr. Yearwood, would have been Mr. Andy Archibald and Michael Way.
Yeah, I know. Archibald, Andy Archibald, Michael Wee, Colin Piper,
Yes.
and Paria-LMCS.
No, he wasn't there at that time.
Right.
I don't think so.
Well, look at paragraph 24 of your statement. No, not your statement. I want to refer to paragraph 24 of Mr. Fleming Holder's statement.
No problem.
Right. He said that, and that's at page
Just a minute,
14,
let's just
page
get it up.
1495, Mr. Chairman of the bundle.
Just a minute. (1495), did you say?
1495, paragraph 24.
Yep. Yes, thank you.
Proceed, Mr. Chairman. Proceed.
Yes, yes, sorry, thank you, yes.
Yes. You see paragraph 24,
Yes.
where he said that the dive supervisor, Mr. Ralph Seals, arrived at the shipping building at around 9 p.m.
Yes.
I took him to the ICP and gave him an update of the incident and the emergency response. You saw that there?
Yes.
What do you say about that?
Right. So I arrived at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
He took
okay,
me. It does not say that I met or he introduced me at that time, you know,
Okay.
at 9 o'clock. So the time that I would have gone, my initial contact with Mr. Holder would have been around 9 o'clock.
Right.
The only person present would have been Mr. Paria-LMCS.
Yes.
Right. Subsequently, which would have been around 9:30,
Mm-hmm.
we went upstairs. He took me upstairs.
Right. That's what I told you earlier. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
So
squeeze
soon-
you on
right,
the half.
so-
I wouldn't
so
squeeze
soon
you on the half
after.
an hour. So let's
So
let's
within
give you
that
that.
period, right? So within that period,
Yes.
Mr. Mustak, I was never introduced, so I met Mr. Mustak at that time.
But that's
So
why I
the
tell you I
person-
wouldn't. So forget it. 9:30.
So
Give or
it's-
take. I mean,
Right,
I
so in
wouldn't
this
hold.
instance-
That's why I said about 9
Yes.
p.m. So I wouldn't hold that. I wouldn't hold your hand to the fire on that.
Right. So
But-
in this statement,
Yes.
right, I would not have been introduced when I would have gone upstairs to Mr. Paul because I met him downstairs.
Yes.
Right. The only persons I would have met upstairs would have been Mr. Piper and Mr. Randy Archibald, Michael Way.
Well, Mr. Holder is saying,
Yes.
I told him that one of the divers was rescued from the pipeline and that there were 4 missing divers. I also introduced him to Colin, which is Colin Piper, Randy, which is Archibald, Michael, which is Michael Wee, Mustak, which is Mustak Mohammed, Paul, and the scribe. Right?
Undescribed.
The scribe is the person
No.
who was recording in that ICP room.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you disputing here? In
No,
this-
so I'll say no. The circumstances of the events
Yeah.
and the introductions was not like that.
All right. Let me
And
give you
I-
that again. Let us
Yes.
say that he didn't introduce you to Paul because you say
Yes.
met Paul.
Yes.
Let us say
Right.
he didn't introduce to Mr.
So-
Mustak Mohammed. So we have that he introduced you to Colin Piper, who you didn't know before, you said.
Yes.
Randy Archibald, you knew before?
No.
Right. Right. And Michael Wee.
No, and I didn't know him either.
Right.
Yes.
So you accept that, at least that part, that you were introduced to those persons by Mr. Holder, Fleming Holder.
Upstairs, yes.
Yes. Right. Good. I now want to deal with the elephant in that paragraph, that he gave you an update of the incident and the emergency response. What say you?
No. No, so as I said, what was communicated to me when
I know what you said.
Right, so-
I just want to know what you say about Mr. Osei Fleming Holder, the Heritage Petroleum Limited HSSE manager, what he's saying about you there. Is that a lie? Well, untrue.
It's a broad statement.
No, it's not broad. It's
So I would not
very
say,
narrow.
I would say it's inaccurate.
You say it's inaccurate.
Yes.
Right. And the inaccuracies is that he did not, forget introduction. He did not update you on the incident and the response.
The update on the incident was as I indicated. It was just a brief explanation of what would have occurred. I was
Which,
unaware.
tell us that. Well, tell us that.
Right. So the divers were working, and while removing a plug, a splash was seen.
Seen, right?
Yeah, and communication was lost.
And you
And,
right away recognize that splash, divers working in a chamber, splash,
In a pipeline.
disappear, pipeline, loss of communication, Delta P
Plug.
event.
Yeah, plug. Plug in
Plug,
the pipeline,
thank
yes.
you, plug remove, Delta P event.
Yeah,
Right.
may have.
But
No,
what?
go ahead, yeah.
No, but you right away realized Delta P event
Yes.
from your experience. Having come to the conclusion, based on that narrative that you were given by Mr. Holder,
Yes.
Delta P event, where you thought the men were?
I can't say because it's dependent on the severity of the delta P.
No, no.
Right
All
now we're using
Let
it.
us deal with the most, forget the quality of the Delta P, whether slight or severe. Delta P, let's go with severe. Where do you think the men would be if it's severe?
If it's severe, yes, they could be in the pipeline.
Yes, they could be in the pipeline.
If it's severe, yes.
And if it's medium?
It could have been on the seabed.
Right. Okay. And if it's either no Delta P, they would still be in the chamber.
At which time?
Well, no Delta, I'm taking it to the next extreme.
Yeah.
No Delta P, just a splash, loss of communication. They're in the chamber. They could be in the chamber.
I don't know.
Right. Right. So you don't know at that stage whether the men are in the pipe.
No.
Right. And you're saying that Mr. Osei Fleming telling you that one of the men in the pipe and 4 missing, that was never communicated to you.
Repeat, sorry?
You are saying that
Yes.
when Mr. Holder says at paragraph 24 that he told you, or that you were told that one diver was rescued from the pipeline and that there were 4 missing, that was never said to you.
Wasn't from the pipeline, was rescued.
He told you one was rescued.
Yes.
Right, let's deal with that. Did you ask him, since at that point you're telling me that you did not know whether the men were in the pipe or not in the pipe or on the seabed, you didn't ask them where that one was rescued from? The one that you now know was rescued,
Yes.
where he was rescued from?
No, I did not interrogate the situation. So I was told, so he gave an explanation of what had occurred, and the conversation didn't progress.
And he said one was rescued.
Yes, one diver exited, yes.
Right. So we could tick off that part of paragraph 24 that he told you one diver was rescued. Right. Up to that point, right? You thinking Delta P, not knowing the severity, you didn't ask them, well, if it's severe, well, ask yourself, if the Delta P is severe, men in the pipe. If it's not severe, they're in the seabed. So you would now want to know whether it's likely to be in the pipe or on the seabed, because you don't know severity. So the next question that would assist you is, where was that one man rescued from? You would agree with that, right?
Yes.
Right. You sent there by your supervisor to lend support. You're up in the ICP. You're there in an open room discussion. You didn't ask a question. That one man on the rescue, where did they get him from?
You know, open room with a discussion.
See why you have problems.
No.
No what?
No, I didn't ask him where he was recovered from exactly.
But you realize that that's a logical question to ask.
Yes.
And let me put to you, the reason you didn't ask it is because Mr. Fleming told you the pipe from the pipeline and that 4 men were still missing. That's why you didn't ask the question.
4 men were missing.
Right, so we could take that off. Or he told you that?
No.
So why you didn't ask the question, and I'm putting to you the reason you didn't ask, is because you knew. He told you from the pipeline.
No.
Well, then explain to me why you didn't ask the question.
So we are putting numbers on the divers and so forth in industry practice, right?
A little louder, please.
Right. In industry practice, it would not have even been imagined that more than 2 people would have been in the water first to begin with.
Just now, industry practice, we would not have envisaged that
Yeah.
more than 2 persons would be in the water.
That all your divers are in the water.
You lost me there, sorry.
Exactly. So in the conduct of activity,
When I say exactly, you intended to. But I lost, but go ahead.
right, so you're carrying out a task in the water. There's really no need to have more than 2 divers in the water. Remember, I'm approaching something. I am unaware of what was being done or the activity that was being conducted.
Let's stick up in there. The fact that you don't know the activity that is being conducted, you cannot conclude that 2 men would be the appropriate number to have in the water. You
Yes.
agree with that?
No, I don't.
So whatever you're doing, 2 men in the water.
In best practice, and no matter the nature of the activity, it's highly unlikely that you would have had more than 2 divers in the water working at one time.
Right.
You would use rigging
Yes.
to facilitate any additional support you may require.
Right. Let's pause on that for the time being. Back to the 1 diver rescued.
Yes.
So 4 missing, you said, could have never been possible.
No, I would not say not possible.
Because that's a fact now.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm trying to get from you is that Mr. Holder is saying, he was told that.
Okay.
No, not okay.
Huh.
Because this is serious. Because you
Yeah.
see, let me tell you why it's serious. Because it is being alleged against Paria in this course of events that they kept you in the dark. So I want to demonstrate that that is not fair and not true. So let's stick with it.
Okay.
Knowing that 1 man was rescued, you did not inquire from the pipe, or where?
Yes.
But you realize that 1 man being rescued, you must then ask, where is the other man? According to you, it's only 2, eh? It's only 2 by industry best practice and standards. Only 2 men could be in the water at the same time. So 1 man recovered, according to you, they didn't tell you from the pipe. So your next question is, where the next man?
No, I did not question him.
So as far as you are concerned, we call out all this equipment and we're going to be looking for 1 man.
No, sir.
All right. How many men you thought we would have been looking for when you were upstairs there?
So I don't know, I was informed. So when I arrived, it was not I was informed of what was transpiring. So as I indicated, what was communicated to me was the event at the time. It was not back and forth communication where...
No, I not into all of that. I am dealing with you upstairs 9:30,
Yes.
up in the ICP,
Yes.
where you introduced to Randy, Colin, Michael, Paul, and Fleming. As far as you're concerned, that operation in that ICP at that time at 9:30
Yes.
concerned looking for 1 man, as far as you are concerned.
No.
How many men you think the operation was about?
It was not a conversation about who they were looking
Not
for.
conversation, your knowledge. As far as you are concerned as an expert diver of 25 years, 2 men in the water, 1 found, 1 minus, 2 minus 1, 1 man this operation concerned. At that point, 9:30 as far as you are concerned. Is that so?
Yeah.
So at 9:30, as far as you're concerned, we're looking for 1 man. 1 man missing.
No.
How many men?
I didn't put thought. The question I had asked was if they knew the
Where the
condition of the... No, I didn't ask on the personnel. I asked on the condition of the habitat and the condition of the plug that they were removing. No answer was given.
You asked about the condition of
The reason why I asked...
Just now, wait,
Yes.
you got your reason. That's how we're doing it here. You answer first and then you come here about some reasons after. You were concerned about the condition sorry, of the habitat, excuse me, and the plugs. Right?
Yes.
Why you needed to know? I tell her, give a chance, a fear, you know. Why you want to know about the condition of the habitat?
No, that would help inform what might have happened.
Right.
Further inform.
And what you need to know about the plugs.
Right. What had happened when they were removing the plugs? If anybody knows where the plug is, what's the current status of the plug? They would have been deflated the plug supposedly, right? Did they completely deflate it? Is the habitat flooded at present? What is the condition of the habitat at that point in time? Is the habitat, was our atmosphere re-established? Is it void? Is it full with water?
Do you want to know that?
That would help inform also where the divers might have been.
So the earlier information, flooding, splash, loss of communication, flooding habitat, plugs out, men missing, you still at that point did not think that the men were in the pipe?
No, it wasn't confirmed.
No, no confirmed, but
No.
thinking.
No,
All right.
I don't know. No.
So you don't know.
Yes.
One man rescued. You don't know. You got all that information about flashing and all of that before. One man recovered. You don't think.
And I did not know from where.
I know.
Yes.
That is what we find difficult to accept. All of that you don't know. You're inquiring about plug and habitat, whether it flooded still high, but and you hear one man recovered. But you realize that where that man was recovered is pivotal to any opinion as to where the others might be. Well, the other one as far as you're
Yes.
concerned.
Yes.
And you didn't ask that question.
No.
You asked about plug and habitat and nobody answered you. Well, I can understand why. I know. What you asked about the pipe? Did you ask anything about the pipe? You asked about the plug, the habitat.
That had no further communication.
You didn't ask about the size of the pipe?
I knew the size of the pipe from downstairs.
You knew the size
Initially,
of the pipe from
they
downstairs?
would have informed me of the size of the pipe.
Who informed you?
Would have been Mr. Holder.
So what he was telling you? Let me hear this. What he told you about the size of the pipe downstairs? You know, realize they're having more information than you told us earlier, right? But go ahead.
It was a 30-inch pipe. The diagram that they show would have indicated a 30-inch pipe.
A diagram?
The sketch?
We come into the sketch, I never hear about the sketch, but just now. Mr. Holder tell you about a 30-inch pipe. When? And in what circumstances?
When they would have shown me the sketch on his phone, it was a picture of a sketch. The whiteboard, I'm saying a sketch. It's a sketch on a whiteboard.
Okay. So just now, wow. You arrive, that's before you go upstairs.
Yes.
Right. Before you go upstairs, we'll tell you, Mr. Holder, tell you one man in cover from the pipe and 4 missing.
Yes.
Which of the 9? That part about the 4 men missing and pipe. So downstairs now, I got the impression earlier that you were just introduced him and all going upstairs 9:30.
No.
So tell us what happened downstairs now with this phone and diagram and thing. First time you realize first time you're hearing this?
Well, just
No, sir, it's in my statement.
Pause for a minute.
I-
No, pause for a
yeah.
minute, please. Pause for a minute. That is not entirely fair. It's set out in his
Yes,
statement
sir.
at
Yes.
paragraph 16.
I am talking about viva voce. That's what I'm talking about.
I know, but you'll appreciate that the summary that's being given for every witness doesn't cover everything.
Sir, I'm not, with the greatest of respect, I'm not speaking about the summary. I understand that. I am speaking about earlier.
No, but you
Viva
just
voce.
said, I know, but you just said this is the first time we're hearing about it. And that's not true.
I didn't finish, sir. I was going to say, in your narrative today, with the greatest of respect, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, is known for, is been fear. All my cross-examination.
No one is suggesting
I was
for
going
one
to take
moment.
him, I would have taken him there, sir. I was speaking.
Mr. Peterson, there's no one is suggesting for 1 minute that you're anything other than entirely fair. Save that. You may have overlooked the paragraph 16 when you made the suggestion that this is the first time we're hearing about it. The fact of the matter is that he has mentioned it before, and it wouldn't be entirely right for you to be able to put to him that it's something new.
No,
And
sir,
I didn't
yeah,
want
agree
that
with that, sir.
impression to be created, all right?
So
So
I would
all
never
I'm
create
doing is-
that impression. What I was putting to the witness is the first time you're hearing that in his narrative of having arrived, having encountered, and go upstairs, and when he first heard certain things.
Well,
Then
certainly
I would
that's
have taken him to his statement and say, but okay, you didn't tell us that for the first time. Look it in your statement.
Right.
So I amend that if that is the impression created, sir.
Certainly it was the impression I got, but
Right.
and I know that you would not have intended that to be the case.
No, sir.
But he has the statement in front of him. This is not a memory test, and he's entitled to look at the statement if it assists him in answering any of your questions.
I agree with you, sir. When I started, I wanted to make sure he had his statement in front of him. I asked him that.
All right.
Right. So you got to Mr. Fleming, and he showed you a diagram. Paragraph 15 of your statement.
Yes.
16 of your statement, the last sentence.
It's in front of you. I suggest you have a look at it. all right?
Yes.
Right. He showed you a sketch about the riser. That is the pipe. The
Yes.
riser and slash chamber.
Yes.
Right? So we're not focusing on seabed anymore. We're focusing on pipe, is not so?
Yes.
Right. Having been focused on a pipe, you will then move at some point to upstairs.
Yes.
He told you one man was recovered.
Yes.
Having been focused on pipe, did he not tell you from the pipeline?
No.
So he just tell you, focus on pipe downstairs. While you're going upstairs, one man recovered and pipe not part of that discussion.
So the habitat is part of the discussion.
I know. Habitat, you mentioned pipe. Is not so?
Yes.
Right. That is your version, and I give you an opportunity to critique what Mr. Hola is saying, he told you, right?
Yes.
I'm being fair. So Mr. Hola, according to you, only told you, look at my sketch on my phone downstairs, pipe. We come upstairs, he tell you upstairs, one man, well, let me be fair to you. Did he tell you downstairs one man was recovered?
Yes.
So he told you that downstairs.
Yes.
And you ask him, showing your pipe, well, better yet, focus, look pipe, one man recovered. And you ask him, thinking about delta P that you had in your mind, you told me earlier you had in your mind. You ask if from the pipe?
No.
What you expect in a delta P event, violent or moderate, to take the men from the habitat into where?
Where the man was at the event.
No, where would the delta P take the man? Having occurred, delta P having occurred, where you expect the delta P to have taken the man?
That would depend on the severity of the delta P.
I know,
Yes.
but you don't know the severity yet.
Yes.
So you're factoring in severe, moderate, slight. Moderate, severe, where you expect it to take the man?
There's a possibility that the man, it can be taken into the pipeline.
Right, I agree with you. So having heard he recovered or rescued,
Yes.
you didn't ask about the pipe. Nobody
Yeah.
tell you about the pipe.
That he didn't end up in the pipe. There's a possibility that he was not in the
I
pipe.
know, but you didn't know. Which of those?
Exactly.
So having been told he's recovered, not knowing whether outside the pipe, inside the pipe, your next obvious question, as a 25-year experienced diver, is where you recover this man from? You must agree that that question jumps out to be begging to be asked, right? Don't you agree?
Yes.
And you were asked, no, that doesn't, that doesn't go into that. You were asked to assist with a risk assessment.
Yes.
Who asked you?
Mr. Holder.
When?
That would have been downstairs.
Before going upstairs the 9:30.
Yes.
Right. a risk assessment to do what?
A diving risk assessment.
To dive where?
Exactly, no. That was the conversation. It was a diving risk assessment.
So but a risk assessment would depend, doing that exercise in any meaningful way must depend on where you're diving.
Yes.
In Mr. Mutu's swimming pool, there were big
No,
risk.
it didn't go anywhere.
In open sea, well, Mr. Swimming, he had a real big pool. In open sea, different risk assessment. Into a pipe, different risk assessment. Penetration dive, different assessment. You agree?
Yes.
Right. So you've been asked to do a risk assessment by Mr. Fleming Holder. You will want to know, assess to dive where?
Yes.
You ask him?
Yes, there's no information.
No, you ask him?
No.
So you didn't say, Mr. Fleming, with the greatest respect to you here, just telling me assess a risk to dive? Let me suggest to you that you're being inaccurate. Do you accept your inaccuracy? In that, I am putting to you, Mr. Holder, ask you to do a risk assessment for a possible rescue of divers from inside the pipeline. I'm at paragraph 16 of Mr. Holder Fleming's statement, Mr. Chairman. It's on page 1493. Yeah. I am putting to you that you're inaccurate because Mr. Fleming Holder told you or requested of you a risk assessment for a possible rescue of the divers from inside the pipeline.
No.
Do you accept that?
No.
So you're asking us to accept that. All he says, Mr. Sealsy, all I want you to do an assessment for me to dive. That is it, right?
Yes.
How you went about that exercise? That request?
It was not conducted.
You're telling me he wasn't conducting it?
No.
So Mr. Fleming Holder is your manager, HSSE at Heritage?
Yes.
He's your boss? He's superior,
superior, yes.
Senior to you?
Yes.
He asked you in an emergency to do an assessment, and you decide you ain't doing it?
No.
What you decided?
I didn't decide anything. We subsequently left.
No, we go deal with, I want to know why you did not do the assessment.
When I arrived, he was at the computer doing something.
I get all that already. We're not dealing with him, we're dealing with you.
Yeah.
Why he requested of you an assessment. You tell me that already. Why you didn't do it?
No, I was not instructed to do an assessment.
All right, he
Yes.
asked you. He instructed you, he asked you.
No. He didn't ask me.
You can't have all
No, that's
marbles,
it. So
eh?
it's a
I
matter.
have to pitch too. You
it's
can't
a
have
ma-
all the marbles.
It's a matter of phrasing and how the conversation went. Right? Do you have a diving risk assessment?
What do you ask you?
If I had a diving risk assessment, or if I can do a diving risk assessment.
No, wait, no. He asked you
Yes.
if you have a diving risk assessment.
Yes.
From where?
There are basic fundamentals in planning a dive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he just was looking for a template to start processing a risk assessment.
And the second one, you tell me when he asked if you had one, or you asked him, the second part was what? Did he request it? It gave me two options. He said he asked if you had one.
Right. So it was not for you or me and myself to prepare a diving risk assessment to rescue divers from a pipeline.
What did he ask you?
So in essence, probably when I arrived, he was doing something on a desktop.
Forget him.
No, that's it. So
Yeah.
if that is what he was doing at the time of my arrival, may have been assistance he was seeking to formulate a risk assessment for diving. It was not specific to rescue divers.
It wasn't what?
A risk assessment to rescue divers. That wasn't the conversation.
So he just interested in diving generally. That's what they're telling us? In an emergency situation, you
Yes.
responding to an emergency, bear that in
Yes.
the back of your mind.
Yes.
So when he asked you about this general diving risk assessment, what did you do? What did you say?
Sorry, there's nothing to repeat.
That is true. What did you say?
Yeah. To prepare risk assessment.
No. When whatever you were saying, Mr. Hola communicated to you,
Yes.
what did you say in response to that request, instructions, invitation? I don't know what it is. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you say?
I can't recall.
You didn't say, boss, I can't do that, I don't have enough information, according to what you're saying?
Yeah.
You said that?
No, I didn't say it like that. I said that. I can't say exactly what I would have said to him.
But he is saying, sir, that he asked you, which to my mind make a little more sense than what you're saying with the greatest of deference to
Yes.
to do a risk assessment for possible rescue of divers from inside the pipe. So you say that was never said to you. I've given you the chance to call Mr. Hola coming here.
Yeah.
He's saying that he tell you that.
Yeah.
That never happened.
No.
Right. He finished on the computer thing and all going upstairs. At this stage, you still in over pipeline, right? And man in the pipe.
Men in the pipe, no.
Right. You're going upstairs. What you saw on the whiteboard when you went upstairs?
It would have been the same, more or less the same as the picture that was shown on the phone.
Right.
So it was the configuration of the habitat and the pipeline.
Right. And you still, at this stage even, you and say, but why all the men wasting all the time and focusing on this pipeline? The men could be on the seabed. You ain't do that?
No.
You ain't wondering all that time, what is this obsession with this pipeline about?
No, there was no obsession with a pipeline.
But there was focus
No.
on the pipeline.
No.
Remember you tell me downstairs when the chairman took me for beating you up earlier with saying you didn't say it before.
Yeah.
On the phone, you tell me there was focus on the pipeline. And the phone, they're showing you on the phone.
No, they're not focused on the pipeline.
Well, they're focused on the whiteboard only?
They are focused on the event.
Mr. Seals.
Yes.
Please. You arrived in the building, the first thing Mr. Hola ran and push in your face is the phone with a pipeline on it. You told us that. He took you to the phone and showing you the pipeline. And asked, well, I am putting to you, asking you about a dive into that.
No.
So he just show you the pipeline.
He showed me what the configuration of the operation was in terms of the habitat, the configuration of the pipeline itself, and where the habitat was,
Show the
and what they was
configuration.
doing. So it's a drawing of a U, basically, with a habitat on one end. Men were in the habitat, they were removing plugs. That was the explanation that was given.
And having removed moving plugs and splash and flush and
yes,
all of that.
communication was lost.
Right.
Yes.
Delta P.
Yes.
Delta P is pulling men into the pipeline. Come on, Mr. Seals. Mr. Ahmed, I say a seal is broken. No, this is
Yeah.
serious because you see, it's serious.
Yes, I'm listening.
Where would the men be in that scenario, Mr. Seals? 25 years experience, diving experience. You told us you had
Sir.
over Delta P.
Yes, so based on the explanation, that's exactly as I said. It's likely that that could have happened, but again, they don't have to be in the pipeline.
Yes. But one of the great possibilities are in the pipeline.
Yes.
And you did not factor in any part of your thoughts, pipeline. You only on seabed,
No?
right? So you thought they could have been in the pipeline.
Yes.
When you thought that first, in that scenario, arriving, phone and all that, when you first thought that?
No, within the whole scenario, yeah.
No.
There would have been a possibility of various things
I
happening.
know. When
That
did
would
you
have been a-
first think, listen to the question.
Yes.
When did you first think that the men could have been in the pipeline? In your arrival, phone being shown to you. Pipeline, habitat, line, flashing, flooding, all that. When did you first think the men could have been in the pipeline?
Within the whole scenario of the explanation?
Within the whole scenario of the explanation,
Yes.
downstairs before going upstairs.
Yes.
Right. That is it. Having had the lingering thought that these men could have been in the pipeline downstairs, you want to change that now?
No?
Oh. Having heard a man was rescued, what came to your mind then? Having thought that it could have been in the pipeline. Not only curiosity ask you to ask, that man rescued from the pipe? So you could eliminate your thoughts that the men could have been in the pipe. You realize that, right?
No, because the fact that he was rescued doesn't necessarily mean that he was in the pipe.
I know that. You didn't know that either.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get from you is that you dare to assist, to search a man. Well, according to you, 2 men. You're thinking pipeline or seabed, right? Could be pipeline, could be seabed. Isn't that so?
Yes.
Because what the rescue has been done, the evidence is that that was being done before they realized a man came out the pipeline. They were searching the seabed and wrong. Because they don't know.
Yes.
So you have those 2 options in your mind. You will want to narrow it down, wouldn't you? Because you're there to help and lend support. Huh? Isn't that so?
Yes.
So you want to eliminate.
Yes.
So if you hear a man is rescued, you either he found on the seabed or in the pipe. So you want to eliminate one of them as possible. And you ask, where them find he?
No.
And that is why I tell you it's more plausible, and I'm putting to you, that you were told, so let's move on. You were told that the man was rescued from the pipe and 4 other men were missing. I'm putting that to you, right? So we can move on. And you deny that you were told that.
Yes.
Right. But you know, subject to correction, I got the impression that you were just put on standby. The impression you gave, at least me, and I'm infallible, that no requests were made of you. You were just brought there.
Did you say infallible?
I always get it wrong, sir. I
well,
always try to tell myself I'm fallible, and I always get it wrong.
So you're fallible then?
I'm fallible.
Yes.
I always try to get it that way, but I always get it wrong. Where was I? My colleague tell me nowhere. But now, I got the impression that you were conveying to us that you were called there, you got there, and you were put on standby, and no requests were made of you.
Yes.
But you realize at least one request so far was made of you.
Yes.
And an important one, to do an assessment for a dive.
Yes.
So do you now accept that the evidence is not accurate when you said Paria had you there and no requests were made of you? You must accept that, because we just went through that. And I want to finish quickly.
Yeah.
So you're inaccurate on that, right? At least that.
Yes.
Right. You're upstairs now, board and everybody upstairs. Going with you for Colin Piper, Randy Archibald, Michael Wee, Paul Yearwood, Osei Holder. What was being discussed at that time?
All right. Paul Yearwood, as I could recall, was not there, as I said. So Mr. Colin Piper came into the room. It was Michael Way, Randy Archibald. It was the same diagram. They explained what had happened. I asked, as I said, I asked the question of what is the status, trying to gain
What is the status of what?
the habitat and the plug. If anybody knows, now this is 9:30 in the night to 10. They appear that they didn't know because no answer was given, and they subsequently left the office.
But at least at that conversation, the surviving diver was revealed,
Yes,
Mr. Bodiam.
yes.
Well, we got through that already, say didn't. And then what happened after that? You
That was it, they left.
Right. And when they left, all you knew is that there was all of this information, this drawing on the board and all of that. A man was recovered, rescued, and that's it. That's all you knew.
Yes,
And you remained silent throughout all of this, apart from asking those two questions about the habitat and the plug.
I was no longer in their presence.
No, whilst you were in their presence, those are the only two questions you asked.
At that time, yes, no answer was given for those questions, and they left.
You and tell them, I feel lemon could be in the pipe, you know. Let's do up an assessment for the pipe.
No, I did not.
Why not?
As I said earlier, I entered into an active emergency management system. Paria's team would have been functioning. The incident command team, LMCS, may have had an emergency response plan active. I do not know who Paria was in communication with, what resources they had available, and what was being done or conducted at that time.
Right.
So when they came into the room and they asked those questions, or not even asked the questions, they showed me to give me an idea of what was transpiring, and I made my comment. That did not go any further. They left. So there wasn't a conversation.
So
I
they
do
showed,
not-
right, they showed you this stuff because you have expertise to bring.
So-
Did you tell them you had Mitchell on site to conduct a dive?
Yes, all that was communicated on my arrival in terms of what resources was available at that time when I arrived. So that's
Right.
why I got the information from Mitchell when they arrived.
Right.
I called OTSL to find out where they were, and I would have communicated that.
Right. And the assistance you brought through Mitchell, at that stage, your equipment that you brought, it was intended for a seabed dive or a pipe dive also.
To effect a dive, it doesn't matter. To effect a dive,
It could be both.
yes.
Right. When you're up in that room upstairs in the
Yes.
ICT, you didn't indicate that you had equipment standing by to do a dive into the pipe also?
No. There was no conversation to effect a dive or request to effect any dive or anything so wrong than diving.
Right.
I would,
So when this, according to you, persons left the ICT, what time you left the ICT room after having arrived around 9:30?
no, and that was not the ICT room.
Well, the room...
This is a room
that-
separate and apart from incident command.
Right.
So they came into a room where I was. I
Right.
do not even know what office that was.
Right.
So this was a brief conversation, and they left.
And they left you. But
Yes.
that room had the whiteboard,
It had a whiteboard.
a
in that room.
whiteboard with
Yes.
the drawing on it.
Yes,
Right. They left there and left you there.
yes.
Right. That was around what time?
That would be after 9:30.
Right. And you remained there by yourself for how long?
Yes, Mr. Fleming would have been there. I would have walked out in the hall, but that's the area I was stationed.
Yeah, for how long? Until what time?
Until would be the 12:15, when they would have had the briefing in the lobby, where a request was made for diver intervention.
So that would have been about 2.5 hours later.
Yes,
When was this request made about diving to remove the blockage in the pipeline?
12:15 approximately.
And you were privy to that? You were present for that?
Yes,
Right. When they make this request, who they made it of?
they made the request of the Coast Guard. They declined.
No, just now, in your presence.
Yes.
Right.
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 So it was a briefing in the lobby area
Yeah.
of that building.
Yes.
Right. He gave a briefing of
Who?
Mr. Piper
Right.
of what the camera would have encountered,
Yeah.
right? And then he made a request for intervention. the initial request was made of the Coast Guard
Yes,
to remove the blockage.
Right.
They declined.
yes.
Then he asked me
He asked you
if I could send my divers
into,
the pipeline
for what purpose?
to remove the blockage, which would have been a cylinder, what the camera would have encountered.
Why would, and you declined that also?
No.
Well, you send the men in?
No, I had no medicine, so I indicated that I have no divers. And I asked questions in
No,
terms
but you
of,
had control over Mitchell divers.
which I explained later on. So I
Yes.
told him, because it was a direct question, if I can send my divers.
Yes,
So just for it not to be misunderstood, I have no divers.
right,
Mitchell's and OTSL have divers, have a
Right.
dive team and a dive supervisor.
right,
What I could have done is make a request through them.
To
So I
dive.
made that clear.
right.
Yes.
12:15,
Yes.
you and saying, but why are we so obsessed with this pipeline?
No, by that time we would have known, because they would have heard of the conversation.
Which
By this
conversation?
12:15, this is after Mr. Budram would have been recovered.
I know,
So
long,
therefore,
Mr. Budram come
exactly.
recovered 5:30, yeah?
Right, so they, in their communication at that briefing, they're looking at going into the pipeline. They have the information that it's possible that men are in the pipeline. So at 12:15, this conversation is to effect a dive into the pipeline.
To remove the tanks,
Yes,
to get clearance to do a rescue.
yes.
Right. So at 9:30, that conversation didn't take place.
No,
Well, I am putting to you it did. In fact, I'm putting to you that you were immediately and entering the building, taken to the whiteboard. You were told that Budram was recovered. I'm putting that to you.
Is
Yeah.
this at 9:30?
Yes, and-
Can I understand, is this at 9:30?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So 9:30 or thereabouts?
At 9:30 thereabouts.
Is this when he had the meeting with
Upstairs.
upstairs
In the
with
room.
Mr. Way?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And you're
Yeah, I'm putting that he was informed that the men were missing, that
Yeah.
Budram had been taken out of the pipe, was rescued out of the pipe.
I
I'm
disagree.
putting that to you. Right.
He was
So-
rescued.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
sorry,
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. We got that already. I don't want to cover ground twice. So we're now at 12:15.
yes,
So the request was made of Mitchell through you,
Yes.
through the supervisor. What did they say about going in to remove the arm?
no, after reviewing the footage, they declined.
Right.
So
You-
that would have been,
You have 25 years experience in diving at that stage.
yes,
You had any difficulty with that declining?
no,
Right. You think it was a reasonable position?
yes,
You had any difficulty with the request to clear the line before going in further? To clear the obstacle before sending in divers?
no, he
Further?
was sending divers in to
To clear the,
obstacle.
yes, thank you, sir. Thanks. You had any difficulty with they sending divers in to clear the obstacle to effect the rescue?
this is after reviewing the video footage,
Yeah.
yes.
What was the difficulty?
As I would have indicated earlier, in terms of the size of the pipeline, how you accessing the pipeline, the equipment that would have been required to effect the dive, what position the diver would have been in, right? How do you rescue, your rescue plan in terms of to
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
we got all that before. Yeah, I don't need to cut you off. I mean, we got that before. I don't want to spend time. I'm also instructed that you weren't just parked aside and put on hold. You were being consulted at different stages for your advice and assistance. Is that not so?
No,
So after 12:15, what happened?
no, sorry, after 12:15,
Yeah.
oh no,
No, between you arriving
yes,
and the declining to send men
Yes.
into the pipe to clear, you were being consulted at different points for your input and assistance.
no,
So after 9:30 thereabouts, the next time you got engaged is 12:15 thereabouts in the lobby meeting.
yes, for that intervention.
After you declined, well, it's through, Mitchell declining through you, what was your participation thereafter?
A request was made for chamber support.
For what?
For recompression chamber support for
Yeah,
Mr.
all right, that
Yes.
is, yeah.
No,
I mean, apart from, okay, go ahead.
So, and right, and that would have occurred at the time when we were reviewing the video footage at berth 6. So my focus would have transitioned from facilitating that request in terms of the treatment for Mr. Boudram,
Yes,
which would have been mobilizing a chamber, the chamber support.
right, that's Mr. Bud, right.
So that's my involvement. So again, this is within the same timeline of having the request to go to berth 6 to review the video with Mitchells and OTSL. The other request at that time would have been for treatment for Mr. Boudram.
So two questions. I got all of that, I'm
Yes,
commendable. You had 25 years diving experience. You were in charge of the diving wing of Heritage, right? If I could call it a diving
Yes.
wing. Paria is a sister company. And I say
Yes.
sister under one kind of umbrella. You went there in an emergency to assist. Bringing your experience to bear, you didn't ask these men, when we dive in, when we looking for this man,
no,
you just sat there waiting to be questioned.
no,
You didn't say, I have the command of Mitchell's diving. I could put 5 men in the water within the next half an hour. Could I do that?
no, sir, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
No, sir.
What do you mean by that's not how it works?
So it's a emergency response system that has been activated. Everybody have roles and responsibilities. I cannot arrive on location. There was no directive of, okay, you are here, you and your team take command of anything. The operation was ongoing. Incident command team, which is, I am unaware of what resources, other resources, and what was actually taking place at berth 6 on LMCS badge, what resources LMCS had, what communication was taking place between LMCS and Paria, or any other external resources. I was sent there to support, if required. So that's saying I am there into a system. I am not there like I am at the commission today. I am not here to do as I please or what I think. I am under the command of,
The chairman,
yes,
yes.
That is not just you either, right?
Mr. Ramada, right, so you got, yeah, I like that, you got into a command system that was
Yes.
already activated.
yes,
That is good, but dealing with the human side of you now,
yes,
and taking for, well, I'm doing this as a risk, taking us about what Mr. Ramadas say about a brotherhood of divers.
yes,
You know divers are missing.
yes,
Notwithstanding the activation of this system, I understand from examination earlier in the commission by Commissioner Wilson about a command system and
Yes.
a structure. And the human side of you now.
yes,
I know a diver is also human, but I mean the human side of you.
Yes.
And saying, well, men missing, I mean, I want to dive, what are you doing?
yes, I would say things to myself.
No, not you to you. Not you to you. Because I say some things to myself in this commission.
No, so
But you understand what I'm saying?
yes,
And you did nothing.
yes,
Even when, at least the one request you admitted to so far was made of you, you didn't do it. To do the assessment,
yes,
the dive assessment. To rescue men. Isn't that so?
no,
You did the assessment? You did nothing pursuant to a request to do an assessment to dive not for gold, to dive to rescue men. Isn't that so?
No, that wasn't, as I said, it was not concluded. It's not clear cut as into a request was made to do a rescue dive, and I said I'm not going to do a risk assessment for a rescue dive. It was a conversation. Subsequently, we left to go upstairs.
But you give advice at some point that a dive is not advisable.
It would not have been any form of advice, it would have been communication from,
Well,
yes.
Suggestion.
So yes,
You suggested that a dive was not advisable
yes, I can say that.
because it was too risky.
Yes,
And that was the dive into the pipe. Or all dives.
well, no, this is a 12:15 conversation. So,
Yeah.
yes, so in terms of diver intervention, this would have been the conversation after the review of the video footage, after consultation with Mitchell's and OTSL dive supervisors, that would have been communicated to ICT.
And your professional opinion, you agreed with the
Yes.
dive supervisor that it's too risky.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Seals.
You have some questions? Yes, I do have a few questions, just if you can help me, please. First of all, can I, in order to try and pin down the time when you first arrived at Paria,
Yes.
and what happened thereafter, can I ask that put up is page 1573, which is the Supplemental Core Bundle, Volume 2, which contains the actions as recorded by Paria's scribe at the scene,
Yes.
at the IMT, right, or the I forget what it's called, the command center, right? The person who's scribing as events take place. And what we can see is, if you go, please, to the next page, 2141. Do you see, there's an entry there. Roll up, please, 2141. I'm afraid the timing of this is not always chronological, but 2141. Do you see it? Yes, there we are. Do you see, thank you. You can see at 2106, there's a discussion with Kazim Ali Sr., and then there's information from Mr. Kazim Ali Sr. And then at 2141, the next entry, it says, discussions with heritage personnel. Do you see that line?
Yes.
Right, that's at 2141. Do you see?
Yes.
Right. Now, you told us that you, between 2130 and 2400 hours, there were various personnel in and out of the meetings, in and out of the office. But at around 2130, you had a meeting which involved a number of the personnel at Paria, correct?
Yes.
Right. And that's the meeting that has been put to you by Mr. Peterson and others. And I just want to try and identify the timing of this, because if this document drafted by Paria is accurate,
yes,
the discussion is taking place at 2141. Do you see?
Yes.
Right. So do you think that might be right when you were in this meeting with these people from Paria? You said 2130.
Yes.
This is 2141.
Possibly.
Right. We can see that the next thing that happens at 2143 is that someone's trying to contact the hospital in order to try and make arrangements to speak to Mr. Boudram.
Yes.
Now, were you present in the meeting where Mr. Boudram spoke to Paria?
No, I wasn't in the meeting.
You weren't in that meeting?
No.
Right. So whatever the time was that you were in the meeting, it's cut off by what we know from other evidence. Mr. Boudram was speaking to members of the team in the incident room. And we know that to be shortly before 10 o'clock. So it's around 2141, there or thereabouts, if that's if their note is accurate.
Yes.
Now, in that meeting at that time, is it the case that you had already spoken with Mr. Fleming Holder?
Yes.
And at 21:41, if that's the right time, you're in this meeting, you're now explaining, or it's being explained to you what did or didn't happen. There's a dispute, I appreciate, between what's being suggested and what you put in your statement, all right?
Yes.
And I'm not really, for the moment, for the purposes of my questions, interested in that dispute. What I'm interested to know is this: whether it is right or wrong that you were told certain things or not told certain things, on any view, the first time you knew anything about the detail of this event, this incident, was at the earliest possible time would have been at 2100 hours,
yes,
when you first arrived at the scene and saw Mr. Fleming Holder.
Yes.
Am I right about that?
Yes.
Right. So, whatever the position, whatever you've been told, whatever you weren't told or were told, it is not suggested that you knew anything other than the very basic fact that there was an emergency to which you were required to attend, yes?
Yes.
Until 2100 hours.
Yes.
All right. At 2100 hours, when you were being told something, whatever it was, were you, and I will ask you to reflect on this, please, were you told then how long it had been since Mr. Boudram had emerged from the pipe?
No.
Think about it, please. It's quite important, this, all right? Do you think there's even the possibility that you were told how long it had been since Mr. Boudram had emerged from the pipe?
No.
Would you regard that as an important fact to be told?
Yes.
You told Mr. Peterson that you were asked at an early stage, say early, sometime after 2100 hours, about a risk assessment.
Yes.
First of all, were you asked if you were capable of preparing a risk assessment?
No.
Were you asked to carry out a risk assessment?
No.
What was it that you were asked about a risk assessment?
If I had a diving risk assessment?
Did you have one? You were asked that, were you?
Yes.
Right. And did you?
Well, again, it would not be specific because the risk assessment is site-specific.
Site-specific.
For the
And
for
you see,
the task.
Mr. Peterson's saying, not
yes.
unreasonably, if that is the case, if a risk assessment is site-specific, wouldn't that lead you inevitably to be asking questions?
Yes. And there was no information available.
Right.
So that's why nothing
well,
ever...
let's take it one step at a time. See, the first question is, did you ask the questions? Because I rather understood your answers to Mr. Peterson was that you didn't.
No.
Right. So do you recognize now that perhaps you should have?
Yes.
Right. So you should have, what you're saying is you didn't ask the questions, but perhaps you should have done.
Yes, I should have interrogated.
Right. Because that, once you started asking those questions, you would presumably be given the answers if they knew them.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that's with Mr. Fleming Holder, all right?
Yes.
And then after that, about a half an hour later, 41 minutes later, if that record is correct, you're now in a meeting with a number of others. Yes, you've told us, Mr. Way,
Yes.
Mr. Piper, and others, yes? And in that meeting, were you asked anything about a risk assessment in
No.
that meeting?
No.
Bearing in mind that we're now pushing 10 o'clock, knowing what you know now, that Mr. Boudram emerged from the pipe at about 5:45, something like that. All right? What was the likelihood of anybody being alive in your mind at 10 o'clock?
Highly unlikely.
Were you willing to risk either your own life or anybody else's in effecting a rescue of anybody who was highly unlikely to be alive?
As a diver, my own.
I'm sorry?
As a diver, my own.
I'm sorry, just didn't catch
Right.
it.
So the question you asked was if I would have been willing to risk my life
Yes.
or anybody else's.
Yes. Bearing in mind, we're now, 4 plus hours after Mr. Boudram has come out of the pipe and nearly 7 hours after the incident.
Yes.
Would you be willing to risk yourself or others to effect a rescue of somebody who you think highly unlikely to be alive?
No.
You were asked a little about the time that it took between your being first alerted to this just before, I think, 6 o'clock. Forgive me, no, I think it was just before 5 o'clock. Yes, literally minutes before 5 o'clock, when you were first told about the incident and asked to attend. Do you remember?
Yes.
So let's, for the sake of a couple of minutes, call it 5 o'clock, all right? So at 5 o'clock, you first learn of this and you were asked to attend. You told us you did the best you could to speed yourself up to get there. You realized it was an emergency. But between that time and arriving at the Paria site, you told us you went first of all to Heritage, and I asked you about how far it was and so on. So just so that I understand this, please, was there anything to prevent you being informed en route what the issues were and what might be done to effect a rescue? I mean, were you on the phone, for example? Were you available on the telephone?
I had my phone, but I was not in communication with anyone from Paria.
No, I appreciate that there's no evidence to suggest that you did actually speak to
Yeah.
anybody at Paria, but I simply want to know whether or not you were available to be called
Yes.
by Paria or anyone else.
Yes.
And had you been called, would you have been in a position to have provided them with such expertise or knowledge as you had?
Yes.
But that didn't happen.
No.
So the hours of delay between, if that's the right expression, between your first being alerted and arrival at Paria would not have prevented them from speaking to you if they had wished to do so.
It would not have.
All right. Yeah, thank you. That's quite a lot. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, in particular Mr. Peterson. Yes, of course.
Following from that last question, nothing prevented Mitchell, your supervisor, Mr. Fortune, Heritage, anybody calling you. Anything prevented you as a human being from volunteering, knowing that there's a diving emergency and you have 25 years experience? Phone calls work both ways, unless your phone is on one way.
Sir, in my opinion, the emergency was being managed by the resources available. So
I know, I get that.
Yeah, so who would
I am
have
dealing with
called?
the human side of you, a diver, brother diver's missing. Nobody ain't calling you, according to your evidence. You must say, for example, if I hear Mr. Mutu missing, nobody had to call me. I call in around everybody I know who could dive, who could fly, who could do whatever. Let's look for Jason. You didn't do any of that.
So who was I to call? That's the question.
Mr. Fortune, to say, hey, you only tell me activate your supervisor. Hey, you only tell me activate so and so and so. I have a boss man at HSA man called Mr. Holder. What all of them doing? Anybody, what we doing? Who missing? How many men missing? Divers missing? Brothers missing? Anything like that?
No.
On reflection, you should have done that, right? Come on. On reflection as a human diver.
So knowing the little that I know now, yes.
The little you know.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave that there, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ramadan.
Questions, and I'm very grateful to Mr. Peterson's cross-examination. So, Mr. Seals, did it ever come to your attention that the survivor, Mr. Budram, had given an indication as to how deep into the pipe he would have been?
No.
You appreciate the pipe at its full length was like quarter mile, correct?
Yes.
You knew that from
1200.
before?
Yes.
That is quite intimidating a distance, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So in answer to Mr. Peterson, when you spoke about the difficulties, you appreciate if it was 1,000 feet in, that would be very difficult, correct?
Yes.
But if it was less, it would be less difficult.
Yes.
And if it was far less, for instance, less than 150, maybe 160 feet, that is doable with all of the difficulties that would have been identified, correct?
Less difficult.
Thank you. And doable. And doable.
Yes.
Thank you. Most grateful to you, sir.
I think Mr. Wilson had some questions, and then I'll come back to answer.
Morning again, Mr. Seals. I just have 3 direct questions. So I heard that your official title in Heritage is Dive Supervisor and Client Representative.
Yeah.
And Client Representative.
Yes.
Have you had any formal training to be a client representative?
Yes.
From which institution?
JFD.
Sorry?
JFD, James Special Division.
GMB, okay,
Yes.
great. So you...
Now move the microphone the other way, to the right, okay? Yes.
All right. Are you aware of your obligations as a client representative under your training or industry best practice as you're quoted?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go here. Just a slightly different question to the room. I heard you mention your awareness that an ICT was stood up, but, and hopefully I'm not repeating the question, but when you arrived at Paria, what upon your arrival indicated that an ICT was stood up and an incident was being managed? What?
I would have taken it for granted that it's industry best practice. So
Okay.
when I was taken upstairs and introduced to the personnel, I wasn't formally introduced identifying each individual's role, but it was assumed.
So you only identified, just to be clear, you only felt like an incident was being managed when it was taken upstairs?
Yes.
And that's when you first became aware that an ICT is stood up
Yes.
and an incident is being managed. Being aware of your roles, responsibilities, and obligations as a client representative, not as a dive supervisor, I don't know, well, I'm going to ask how much experience you've had in terms of managing an emergency response.
None.
Any training or awareness, not even diving related, but any other sort of training or familiarization courses?
No.
All right. And I think what came out into the room, but I'd also like to test with you. At any point in time, did you feel, as a client representative, that you felt that you could have injected yourself into the IMT, given that you are a subject matter expert?
No.
No.
Based on my assumptions of, again, I didn't know what resources were available to Paria's team, who they were in communication with, and what LMCS had in place.
I understand that, but it would be more the injection of your expertise into the conversations. That what I'm asking is not your awareness. Your awareness of those resources would come after I offer for your consideration. That would come after you inject yourself into the ICT conversations and stuff. Yeah. All right. My third question would be around the decompression chamber.
Yes.
I heard that a request was made for that, but also I heard that the decompression chamber was no longer required. Who indicated that chamber no longer required?
I would have been informed through heritage personnel. That via the doctor, so it was a communication.
Okay, so there was a doctor or Hyperberg doctor
Yes.
involved in that decision.
Yes, so
That
again-
decision didn't come from you.
No,
Okay, great. So, and that doctor was part of Heritage's emergency response, if you're aware.
no, I'm unaware. So again, I was just facilitating requests. So communication and requests came from individuals through
Understood.
heritage. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Maharaj.
Yeah. I just have a few questions. In answer to Mr. Peterson, when he asked you, well, why you didn't offer some advice, some men are missing, men need to be rescued, you said you were aware that the ICT was activated.
Yes.
And therefore you couldn't do that, right? You remember you
Yes.
said words to that effect? If you were invited by the ICT to give the ICT advice on rescue efforts for these men, would you have done that?
Yes, but it would have required going to the site.
It was required?
Going to the site and being more informed and involved.
Yes. And if you were permitted to do all of that by the ICT, would you have been prepared to do that?
Yes.
Yes. And you would have been able to answer some of the questions that were asked of you today as to the considerations in having a rescue plan for that particular situation on that day.
Yes.
But you were never asked to do that.
No.
As a matter of fact, according to paragraph 5 of your affidavit, you were asked specifically to mobilize Mitchell's Professional Diving Services Company Limited to report to and provide support if required at Paria Trading Company Limited.
Yes.
And you kept to your instructions, what you were instructed to do.
Yes.
That's all for this witness.
Yes, thank you. Right, we'll take lunch and resume at 2:30, please. To go, Mr. Seals, forgive me. It's been a long morning, so forgive me. Thank you very much for coming. Your evidence is appreciated, as it is with all witnesses here. You're now free to go, and you can stay or leave as you please, all right? But thank you very much. Thank you. All right, yes, we'll rise now, and we'll resume at 2:30, please, 2:30.